All right, adventure seekers, let's dive into the world of tour leading. Today, we're going to get you ready for that big interview to be a tour organizer. We've got RoleCatcher. It's a platform that's just packed with career advice and stuff, and we're going to pull wisdom from their career guide, their interview guide, specifically for tour organizers, of course.
Yeah, this is really exciting because we're not just talking about any job. We're talking about a career where you're putting together unforgettable travel experiences for other people. Think about it. You're making those itineraries, you're handling all the surprises, and you're the go-to person for everything. From must-see sites to, navigating all the local customs.
Yeah, before we get to the hard stuff, the interview questions, can we just appreciate that we're talking about a job that involves travel? Who wouldn't want to spend their days just exploring new places and sharing it with other people?
Right. It's a dream job for a lot of people. But let's be real, it's also a job that needs like a special mix of skills, a lot of preparation. Luckily, RoleCatcher's got these incredible insights into what it really takes to be a tour organizer to succeed.
Let's get into it.
Mm.
What's RoleCatcher's career guide say about the day-to-day life of a tour organizer?
Okay, well, first, they really emphasize planning. A tour organizer manages the whole itinerary. Everything. The transportation, where you're staying, activities, excursions, the whole thing. You're in charge of making sure it all goes smooth, that everybody's having a fantastic time.
Sounds like a lot of responsibility. What kind of person really does well in this kind of job?
Yeah. The guide points out you need excellent communication, being detail-oriented, and really important, the ability to handle pressure. Think about it. Imagine a flight's delayed and it throws off your perfect schedule. Or someone loses a passport. You got to be able to think on your feet, you got to stay calm, find solutions, and you got to do it quickly.
It's not just about loving travel. It's about, being amazing at logistics, like a master problem solver.
It really is.
RoleCatcher also has that really cool AI feature, right? The one that looks at job descriptions.
Hmm.
How can that help someone getting ready for a tour organizer interview?
Okay, so RoleCatcher's AI is like having a personal career coach, but in your pocket. It can scan that job description and pick out like the exact skills, the keywords that the hiring manager wants. And then it gives you like customized feedback on your resume, your cover letter. It helps you highlight the best parts of your experience.
That's really something. It's like a secret weapon to make your application stand out.
Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of know what a tour organizer does, and we know RoleCatcher can help us tailor our application. Let's get to the main thing. Interview questions.
Totally. Let's crack open RoleCatcher's interview guide and go through some questions you might get, starting with a classic. Can you describe your experience in planning and coordinating tours?
That sounds pretty basic.
Hmm.
But I bet there's got to be more to it than listing where you've traveled, right?
Yeah, you got it. It's not enough to just be like, oh, I love to travel. They want to see proof. Proof of your organizational skills, your attention to detail, and how you handle all those crazy logistics.
How should someone answer a question like that?
Okay, think of specific tours you've planned, even if it was just for, friends or family. Focus on the steps, like what you did, the tough parts, how you handled them. Did you have to haggle with hotels to get a good rate? Did you make a super detailed itinerary that worked for everyone? Those are the things that impress them.
So instead of just, oh, I planned a trip to Europe with my friends, it should be more like, I organized a 10-day backpacking trip through Southeast Asia for 6 people, which involved booking flights, accommodations, transportation.
Yep.
Researching visa requirements, making a budget, and designing an itinerary that was like a balance between cultural experiences and adventure stuff.
Exactly. And don't forget to mention any surprise problems you had, how you fixed them, a flight cancellation, someone gets sick, Those are chances to show how good you are at solving problems and staying cool under pressure.
That's a really good point. It's not just about the good stuff, it's about how you handle the bad stuff too.
Yeah.
Now, how does RoleCatcher's AI help with this kind of question?
Okay, let's say they want someone with experience in, adventure travel or cultural tours. RoleCatcher's AI, it sees those keywords and it'll be like, hey, talk about those experiences in your answer. So if they want adventure, talk about that time you organized a whitewater rafting trip.
Like a personalized guide for making the perfect answer. Okay, let's try another one. This one a lot of people hate. How do you handle unexpected issues that come up during a tour? Everyone knows things go wrong when you're traveling.
Oh, yeah, all the time. And the interviewer knows that, too. They're not expecting you to, be a miracle worker.
Yeah.
What they want is, again, proof. Your problem-solving skills, how you think on your feet, and how dedicated you are to keeping your customers happy.
How can someone, get ready for that question.
Okay, think of common travel problems. Flights are delayed, luggage is lost, the weather suddenly changes, someone in the group gets sick. Then, brainstorm. How would you deal with these? How do you talk to your group? What resources do you use? How do you keep everyone safe and sound?
So instead of freaking out, I have no idea what I'd do,
Hmm.
I should have some kind of plan, even if it's, flexible.
Yeah, exactly. You could say something like, if our flight was canceled, the first thing I'd do is contact the airline, check about rebooking. At the same time, I'd let the group know what's going on, maybe offer some other activities or different accommodations while we wait. And I'd make sure everyone has, food, water, any meds they need.
That makes me feel so much more ready. It's about being, proactive, showing you can roll with the punches, do it smoothly and get things done. Does RoleCatcher's AI, does it have anything for this specific question?
Absolutely. Let's say they want someone with experience in, like, crisis management or dealing with customers. RoleCatcher's AI, it'll pick up on those keywords and suggest you talk about those times when you've handled tough situations. Like, maybe there was a medical emergency on a volunteer trip, or you helped a friend who lost their passport while traveling. Real-life stuff makes your answer better.
It's really making me realize that prepping for this interview is more than memorizing answers. It's like thinking about what you've been through and figuring out how it shows you could be a great tour organizer. What's the next question?
Money time. This one's all about budgeting. How do you make sure tours stay within budget?
Oh, the budget question. But being good with money is so important for this job, right? You don't want to blow the budget and leave everyone stranded.
Absolutely. They want to know you understand how important it is to be responsible with money, that you can manage a tour budget like a pro.
So how do you answer that?
Okay, think about your own travels. Have you ever had to stick to a super tight budget? Did you research the cheapest places to stay, find clever ways to save money on transportation, that kind of thing? Those are all valuable. You can also mention if you have any experience with budgeting, from other parts of your life, like handling personal finances, maybe a budget for a school project.
So I could say something like, I've always been careful with my spending while traveling. I look for good deals on places to stay, cook some of my meals, take advantage of free stuff, attractions. Plus, I'm good at keeping track of expenses and sticking to a budget.
That's a good start. But let's go further. What if they say, okay, but how would you handle surprise expenses that come up during a tour?
Ooh, that's a hard one. What if, transportation costs suddenly go up or there's a medical emergency?
This is where you show you're proactive and you can solve problems. Talk about having a little extra money in the budget, just in case. You could say you're willing to negotiate with vendors, suppliers, to get the best deals, even when things are crazy. The point is, show you're resourceful and you can handle money stuff, even when things change.
Makes me think about those times I'd had to haggle, like at a market or find a last-minute hotel deal. Those experiences actually matter for this job.
They do. And RoleCatcher's AI, it can connect your experiences to what they want for the job. So like if they want someone good with financial forecasting or keeping costs down, RoleCatcher might suggest you talk about times you've made tough choices with money or found ways to save.
This is giving me so much more confidence about these questions. It's
Yeah.
all about thinking about what I've done and how it shows my potential as a tour organizer. Okay, hit me with another one.
All right, let's get into something that's more and more important in the travel industry. How do you make sure tours are culturally sensitive and appropriate?
That's a great question. A lot of people are becoming more aware of how tourism affects different cultures. They want to travel responsibly. How do you show that in an interview?
It's got to be more than just saying, I'm respectful of other cultures. You got to show them you've thought about it, about cultural differences and, have ways to make sure your tours are sensitive to local customs, traditions, all that.
So, what are some examples of how someone could show that?
Think about times you've run into different customs while traveling or reading about other cultures. Maybe you learned about dress codes for religious places or, local rules about tipping or taking pictures. You could also talk about times when you had to change how you communicate or act so you don't cause problems.
Like, for instance, I learned that in some cultures, it's super rude to point directly at someone. So I'd make sure to tell my tour group about that custom before we go there. Or I could mention how I always look up local customs about greetings and try to learn a few basic phrases in the language.
Awesome examples. You're showing that you don't just know about these differences, you actually use what you know when planning and running your tours. And a good interviewer might follow up with, okay, what if someone in your group is being disrespectful? How would you deal with that?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's one thing to watch your own behavior, but what about a whole group?
This is where you're a leader. You could talk about setting ground rules before the tour even starts, like a little orientation that covers cultural sensitivity. You could also say you'd be willing to talk to someone directly, but nicely. Explain why it's important to be respectful.
Like a cultural ambassador, not just a guide.
Yeah.
And RoleCatcher's AI probably has some good insights for this question, right?
Oh, yeah. If the job mentions experience with diversity, inclusion, communicating across cultures, RoleCatcher's going to be like, highlight those times when you successfully dealt with cultural differences or helped people from different backgrounds understand each other. Maybe you volunteered with a global organization or studied abroad, where you had to adjust to a whole new culture.
It's crazy how things that seem totally unrelated can suddenly become super relevant when you think about them in terms of a job. All right, bring on the next question.
Okay, let's switch gears. Talk about marketing. How do you market and promote tours to potential customers?
This is where my inner salesperson comes out. But it's got to be more than just being charming, right? What are they looking for in this answer?
They want to see that you get marketing, the basics, that you can think strategically about how to reach the right people. Have you ever, made a marketing campaign, even for a school project or, a fundraiser? Have you ever used social media to promote something?
So instead of just saying, I'm good at talking to people and getting them to sign up for tours, I should give actual examples of how I've, marketed something successfully before.
Exactly. You could talk about, making a social media campaign for a local event and it really increased attendance, or designing flyers or brochures that got the message across about a product or service. The point is, show you understand marketing and you can use it for travel.
Like, I could talk about how I made a Facebook page for a local hiking group. I shared awesome pictures, fun facts about the trails, and, good reviews from hikers. And because of that, the group doubled in size in just a few months.
Perfect. That shows you get social media marketing and you can create stuff that gets people excited, your target audience. And remember, they might ask more, like, what specific strategies did you use? Or how would you measure if the campaign was successful? Be ready to explain your thinking and how you analyze the results.
So it's not just about being creative. It's also about, using data. Being able to track if your marketing is actually working. I bet RoleCatcher's AI can help with this too, right?
Of course. If the job mentions things like digital marketing, social media, or creating content, RoleCatcher will be like, hey, talk about those times when you use those skills to successfully promote something.
This is making me realize that my, love for travel photography and writing could actually be helpful for this job. I could totally use those skills to make, cool marketing materials for tours. Okay, next question.
Let's talk about one of the best parts of this job. Making those unforgettable experiences for your travelers. The question is, how do you make sure your tours are memorable and exceed customer expectations?
Oh, I like this one. It's not just about checking things off a list. It's about making those wow moments that people will remember forever.
Yeah, exactly. They want to see that you get that creating an emotional connection with your travelers is important and that you have that creativity, that passion to go the extra mile, make their trip special.
How can we show those things in an interview?
Think about those moments from your own travels that you still remember. A breathtaking view, maybe you randomly met a local, or a meal you'll never forget. What made those so special? And how can you bring that into your tours?
I could talk about how I always try to include local experiences in my itineraries, like eating at a family-run restaurant or seeing a traditional cultural performance. It's about giving people a glimpse into the real place, not just the tourist traps.
Yes. That shows you get experiential travel, that you're willing to go deeper to make those meaningful connections. You can also talk about how much you love telling stories, weaving in historical stuff, cultural insights, personal stories, making your tours more engaging, more memorable.
This is reminding me how important it is to be a good storyteller, not just a guide. You're painting a picture with words, bringing a destination to life for people. RoleCatcher's AI can probably help with this too.
Totally. If they mention experience with customer service, hospitality, or planning events, RoleCatcher might suggest you talk about times when you went above and beyond to make someone's experience amazing. Maybe you threw a surprise party for a friend that they'll never forget, or volunteered at an event where you made everyone feel welcome and appreciated.
It's so cool how things that seem random can become relevant when you think about a specific job.
Totally. It's about connecting the dots, showing them the skills that make you a great candidate.
This has been so helpful. I feel way more ready to answer these interview questions and really show them how passionate I am about creating incredible travel experiences.
That's awesome to hear. Remember, practice makes perfect. The more you think about your experiences, how they relate to being a tour organizer, the more confident you'll be going into that interview. Hashtag TTS The Deep Dive episode 2024-10-23, part 2 of 3. Now that we've, talked about how to show off your experience and passion for making those memorable tours, let's get into something that's super important in travel these days: sustainability.
That's so true. It's not just about showing people a good time anymore, right? It's about being responsible, taking care of the planet, making sure our travels have a positive impact. How do we show that we're all about sustainability in an interview?
It starts with really understanding what sustainable tourism means. They want to see that you know about things like reducing your carbon footprint, conserving resources, and supporting those local communities.
So it's not enough to just say, like, oh, I care about the environment.
Nope, not at all. You got to give real examples of how you've actually done sustainable stuff in your own travels or work. Have you ever chosen places to stay or ways to travel that are eco-friendly? Have you looked for tour operators who are all about sustainability?
Yeah, I can mention how I always try to pack light so the plane doesn't have to work as hard, or how I always use my reusable water bottle and shopping bags when I'm traveling.
Perfect examples. And don't be afraid to get specific. Mention the names of those eco-friendly hotels or those sustainable tour operators you've researched. It shows you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk.
It's all about action, not just words.
Mm.
Now, what if they ask something harder? Like, how would you handle it if someone in your tour group just doesn't want to do the sustainable thing?
That's a really good question, and you should definitely be ready for it. The key is to show them you can be a leader, but also an educator. You could talk about how you'd be understanding, explain why sustainable tourism is important, how it can have a good impact on the local environment and community.
So it's about finding that balance, encouraging people to be responsible, but also respecting their choices.
Exactly. You could also talk about ways to make sustainable stuff more appealing, like showing off local businesses that are all about sustainability, or activities that are fun and good for the planet.
Instead of that typical souvenir shop, I might suggest a local artisan cooperative that does things sustainably. Or maybe a hike in a nature reserve instead of a day at a packed theme park.
I love those ideas. And remember, RoleCatcher's AI can find those specific keywords about sustainability that are important for the job you want. Like if they mention experience with ecotourism or responsible travel, RoleCatcher is going to point that out so you can highlight those experiences.
It's like having a personal guide for all these sustainable tourism job interviews. Okay, what about accessibility?
Absolutely. Making sure tours are accessible to everyone, no matter their abilities, is so important. It's about making travel fair and inclusive for everyone. And they'll want to see that you're ready to meet everyone's needs.
So how do we show that we're all about accessibility in the interview?
Start by learning about accessible tourism, what it means, the different types of disabilities, the challenges people might face.
Like, I know some people might need wheelchair-accessible transportation or hotels. Others might need help getting around in unfamiliar places or communicating in different languages.
Exactly. You also got to know the laws about accessibility, both where you're from and where you'll be traveling.
So I should look up things like the Americans with Disabilities Act or the accessibility rules in the European Union.
Yep, that's the idea. Don't be shy about asking questions during the interview either. It shows you're eager to learn and you really want to create inclusive experiences. You could ask about their policies on accessibility or if they have experience working with travelers with disabilities.
I could also mention any personal experiences I've had with accessible travel, like planning a trip for a family member with a disability, or maybe volunteering with an organization that's all about accessibility.
Those are great examples. Remember, RoleCatcher's AI can help you match your answers to the specific accessibility stuff they mention in the job description. If they're looking for someone who's worked with visually impaired travelers, RoleCatcher might suggest you talk about your experience with things like audio descriptions or tactile maps.
This is making me realize that being a tour organizer is so much more than just planning the trip and booking flights. It's about solving problems, being an advocate, and really fighting for inclusive travel.
Could you have said it better myself? Okay, let's move on to something that's super important for any successful tour organizer: building relationships with vendors and suppliers.
Ooh, that sounds like there's some good stories there.
Well, it's not about spilling the tea or anything. They want to know if you can build and keep those strong professional relationships. Don't forget, as a tour organizer, you're working with a whole network of people: airlines, hotels, transportation companies, tour guides, everyone.
So instead of just saying, I'm a people person, I should give specific examples of how I've worked well with vendors and suppliers before.
Exactly. Have you ever gotten a really good deal with a hotel? Or gone above and beyond to fix a problem with the transportation company? Those kinds of stories show off your communication skills, your problem-solving abilities, and how you build trust and good relationships.
What if they ask, tell me about a time you had a conflict with a vendor or supplier and how you handled it?
That's a classic interview question, and it's all about seeing how you handle conflict. Don't be afraid to share a tough experience, but always focus on the positive, how it ended, and what you learned.
Okay, so I should show them I can stay calm, communicate clearly, and find a solution that works for everyone involved.
Exactly. And remember, you can always use RoleCatcher AI to see if they mention any specific relationship building skills in the job description. Then you can make sure your answers match what they're looking for. It's like having your own personal networking expert.
I love how RoleCatcher is like our secret weapon for this interview prep. Okay, what's next?
Let's talk about something that really tests your leadership skills. How do you manage a team of tour guides and coordinators?
Now we're getting into the real nitty-gritty of running a tour. This sounds like a question for someone who's been doing this for a while.
You don't have to be a seasoned pro to answer this well. They just want to see what kind of leader you are, how you motivate and support a team. Have you ever led a team, even if it was for volunteering? Have you mentored or trained someone?
So instead of just saying, I'm a good leader, I should give examples of how I've delegated tasks, given feedback, or resolved conflicts within a team.
You got it. Think about those times you've been a leader, even if it wasn't a formal job. Did you organize a group project for school? Were you the captain of a sports team? Those can all show that you can lead and inspire others.
What if they ask, how do you deal with a team member who's not doing their job well?
That's a tough one, but it happens.
Yeah.
They want to see that you can handle those performance issues professionally and in a way that helps people improve. Talk about how you would give clear feedback, set expectations, and offer support.
So it's about being supportive, but also making sure things get done.
Exactly. And don't forget, RoleCatcher can look at that job description and tell you if there are any specific leadership skills that are really important for the company or the type of tour they offer. It's like having a personal leadership coach.
RoleCatcher just keeps impressing me with these tips.
Hmm.
Okay, what's the last question for today's deep dive?
Let's finish with a question that's all about results. How do you know if a tour was successful?
Ooh, good one. It's not just about having fun. It's about meeting goals and going above and beyond what people expected.
Exactly. They want to see that you understand how to measure success and that you use data to make decisions. Have you ever gotten feedback from travelers? Analyzed how well a tour did?
I could talk about how I would create surveys to get feedback from travelers, or how I would track things like customer satisfaction scores and repeat bookings.
Great examples. But they might push you a little further, like, what would you do if a tour kept getting bad reviews? Be ready to explain how you'd look at the data, figure out what needs to be improved, and make changes to make the tour better.
This is making me realize that being a tour organizer is a job where you're always learning and getting better.
You're totally right. And don't forget, RoleCatcher can help you find those specific performance metrics that are mentioned in the job description so you can tailor your answers perfectly.
Okay, my brain is officially full of tour organizer knowledge.
Oh.
But before we finish this deep dive, can we talk about RoleCatcher's AI one more time? I'm still so amazed by how much it can help with interview prep. Hashtag TTS The Deep Dive episode 2024-10-23, part 3 of 3. Okay, so we're back, and we're talking about becoming a tour organizer. We've gone through a lot, planning itineraries, handling those cultural differences, making things sustainable, the whole 9 yards. But there's something we haven't really talked about yet, right?
You got it. It's one thing to plan a tour that, logistically makes sense, but you got to create an experience that blows people away, leaves them with memories that last. And that's where customer service, really comes in.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do you, show that in an interview?
Yeah.
You can't exactly bring in a grumpy tourist to, demonstrate your skills, right?
Haha. No, definitely not. That's where those behavioral questions come in. Remember, they love to hear about real examples from your life, even if they're not directly about travel. Think about times when you went above and beyond, made someone's day, or fixed a conflict, turned a bad situation into a good one.
Okay, so, the classic question, tell me about a time you dealt with a difficult customer or a complaint. How did you handle it? That one always makes me nervous.
It's a classic for a reason. Every tour organizer is going to have those tough situations. The key is to show you can stay calm, listen to people, and find solutions that work for everyone.
Right, so I shouldn't be like, oh, I've never had a difficult customer, because let's be real, Everyone's had to deal with a difficult person at some point.
Exactly. Instead, focus on those problem-solving communication skills. Share a story, even if it's from a part-time job, volunteering, whatever. Just describe the situation, what you did, and how it ended well.
Like, I could talk about that time I worked as a barista, and this customer was furious their order was messed up. Instead of, getting defensive, I listened to them, apologized, and offered to remake their drink exactly how they wanted it. I even gave them a free pastry, just to show I cared. They ended up leaving happy, and I felt good about fixing things peacefully.
I like it. You're showing empathy, you listened, and you genuinely wanted to make things right. Now imagine that same story, but on a tour. Maybe someone hates their hotel or an activity wasn't what they expected. Same skills, different situation.
Okay, so I could say, if a traveler had a complaint during the tour, first, I'd really listen to them, acknowledge how they're feeling. Then I'd apologize for the trouble and explain what I'm going to do to fix it. I'd also let them know that their happiness is my top priority, that I'm going to find a solution that works for them.
Perfect. You're showing them you can handle tough situations like a pro, always putting the customer first. And remember, RoleCatcher's AI can help you find those customer service keywords in the job description so your answers are spot on.
Like a little cheat sheet for customer service. So besides dealing with complaints, what else can we do in the interview to show we're all about making customers happy?
Think about those little things that can make a trip amazing. Have you ever had amazing customer service that made you feel special? What did they do that made a difference?
I remember traveling alone once, and I was feeling a little homesick. The hotel staff, they noticed I was eating by myself and went out of their way to talk to me, recommend local things to do, even left a little note and a local candy in my room. It was so small, but it really made me feel better.
That's exactly it. It's about understanding how important it is to make things personal, creating those little moments that make someone's trip unforgettable. You could mention how you'd try to learn your travelers' names, what they're interested in, if they're celebrating anything special. You could also talk about going beyond the itinerary, offering insider tips, local recommendations, maybe even some fun surprises to make it feel adventurous.
It's like being a thoughtful host, anticipating what people need, making the tour feel less like a package deal and more like, a journey with a friend.
Exactly. And remember, stories are powerful. Share those stories from your travels that show how much you love creating those memorable experiences.
This is making me want to start planning tours right now.
Yeah.
Okay, we've covered so much. Any last words of wisdom for someone prepping for their tour organizer interview?
Okay, a few things to remember. Research, research, research. Don't just skim their website. Really dive into their tours, read those reviews, get a feel for who they are. Practice your answers, of course, but don't sound like a robot. Just figure out how to structure your responses so they highlight your skills and what you've done. And show them that passion. Share stories, travel tips, anything that shows you really love exploring the world. Oh, and dress professionally, of course. And have some good questions ready to ask them. It shows you're interested and want to learn more. And always send a thank you note afterwards.
Those are great tips. And of course, a positive attitude and a genuine smile go a long way.
Absolutely. Walk in there confident, enthusiastic, ready to create those unforgettable experiences.
All right, folks, that's our deep dive into becoming a tour organizer. We've gone through it all, the skills, the strategies, the mindset you need to make it in this exciting field.
Remember, there's a whole world out there waiting to be explored.
So go out there, explore, and share your love of travel with everyone. And don't forget to check out RoleCatcher. Their AI tools are amazing for tailoring your application, practicing your answers, and feeling confident about landing that dream job. Until next time, happy travels.